Welcome into Road to the Draft, powered by Microsoft Copilot. In today's episode, senior writer and editor Scott Smith highlights some day two prospects and some names to come out of a unique pro day.
Well, you know, as we've traveled down this road to the draft this spring, we've mostly stayed in the fast lane. And by that I mean we've discussed mostly what the Buccaneers might do in the first round of the draft, because that's what most mock drafts are about. But when you think about it, there's so much more to the draft. And in particular, the second day of the draft, rounds 2 and 3, can be a huge part of building your team. Just think about the core of this team and how many of those players were second and third round picks. You've got Cody Mauch, Luke Gedeke, Jalen McMillan, Jacob Parrish, Antoine Winfield, Yaya Diaby. The list goes on and on. Chris Godwin, it's been a while, but that was a third round pick. So that is a very important part of this draft for the Buccaneers. And we thought we might therefore focus on day 2 of the draft today, in which the Buccaneers right now have picks 46 in round 2 and picks 77 in round 3. There's always a possibility, as I did in one of my recent mock drafts, of the Bucs getting even more assets on day 2 with a trade down in round 1. We'll see if that happens. But first, we're going to focus on just a couple players that the Buccaneers might be able to get in the second and third rounds. First one we're going to talk about is Texas Tech's Jacob Rodriguez. The only question about him is what award did he not win at the end of this last season? He was 5th in the Heisman balloting, which for a linebacker is pretty rare. He won the Bednarik Award, the Lombardi Award. There's more. He also won academic awards, so this is a very sharp player that we're talking about. This is an extremely productive player at Texas Tech who fits a need for the Buccaneers at off-ball linebacker. He tested well at the combine. He was really good apparently in this back pedal, which is important when we're talking about pass coverage for the Buccaneers, especially when they're playing the Tampa 2 and your inside linebacker has to get down the middle of the field. Just a really, really productive player. Also plays very, very hard every snap. And like I said, he has good instincts. Was a quarterback and a running back when he started in college, so he's an athletic player. Just a guy that I think the Buccaneers could put on the field right away. My only question about Jacob Rodriguez is availability. His stock seems to be on the rise. Will he still be there about midway through the second round? Hard to say. Now let's take a look at another player that might be available to the Bucs in the second round, a player I really, really like a lot. San Diego State cornerback Chris Johnson, good size and wingspan at 6'0" and 193, and he's really a scheme versatile type of cornerback. You can play him in man, you can play him in zone. He's mostly an outside corner, but he could probably go in the slot if you need him to. Very productive guy, finds the football, attacks the football when there's contested catches. 4 interceptions last year. Really one of the things you really love to see in a cornerback, especially when you draft as high in the second round, is hip fluidity. He just turns and moves really easily. He attacks the ball, like I said. He's enthusiastic in run support, which I think is important in the Todd Bowles defense. You want your cornerbacks to do that. And he's fast. He ran a 4.4 in the combine, so he's got all the things you'd want in a cornerback. I think that's the guy that just fringe might be available at pick number 46. Now, the third guy I want to talk about is actually on the offense. And I know we've been dealing mostly with defense in these mock drafts because that's where the Buccaneers seem to have the most pressing needs. But think about in the third round, the possibility of landing Georgia Tech's Keelin Rutled. This is the type of offensive lineman that I think the Buccaneers like when it comes to setting the tone on the field, a very nasty demeanor on the field. Georgia Tech, really their offense with Haynes King at quarterback, their offense was built around physical, just beating up the other team, and I think Keelin Rutled really set the tone for them in that regard. 6'4", 316, so he's got good size. He's just a mauler. He's powerful when he's on the move, when you do pulls and such things, and he makes blocks on moves, they're just jarring blocks. And like I said, nasty demeanor. He finishes plays. Just a guy, when you think about the Buccaneers offensive line, we do have 5 guys under contract that are expected to start this season. But Cody Mauch's going in the last year of his initial contract. Ben Bredesen has 1 year and then another year left on his contract. And just in terms of building depth, but also thinking about the future, I think building along the trenches is something that Jason Light has liked to do in the second and third round in a lot of his drafts. So this is a guy the Buccaneers might be interested in the third round. All right, well, we talked about some players you probably heard about a lot there in the second and third rounds, but we wanted to finish this video, this week's episode, by talking about some players you maybe haven't heard about yet, but might be names you're going to hear as potential sleepers very late in the draft. And they come from the International Player Pathway Program, which recently, at the end of March, along with the HBCU Combine, held a combine for these players, IPP Combine they called it, or a showcase. And there are players from other countries, or potential players, prospects, that got a chance to run through combine-type drills, and a couple of them really stood out. First of all, UR Bernard, he's a basketball player from Nigeria, 6'4.5", 306 pounds. You see him there on the screen, absolutely cut. They think he could potentially be an interior defensive line prospect, maybe like a 3-4 defensive end. This guy, not only does he have that size, he ran a 4.63 at that size with a vertical leap of 39 inches and a broad jump of 10 feet and 6 inches. And he bench pressed the 225 pounds 31 times, so he's strong as well. He's got 36-inch arms. Just a freak athlete, I guess, is how he's being described. Obviously a guy with no real football background, but you talk about a guy like Jordan Mailata that the Eagles were able to turn from a rugby player into one of the best left tackles in the NFL. When you're late in the draft, sometimes it makes sense to take a flyer on a prospect like this. And in addition to Bernard, there was another player at the IPP showcase named Joshua Weru, a little bit lighter, 6'4", 244, so maybe more of a edge prospect type of player. He also is a rugby player in Kenya, 6'4", again, 244, ran a 4.45 40-yard dash with a vertical leap of 41 inches and a broad jump, a ridiculous broad jump of 11 feet and 2 inches. So an incredible athlete. You see him here running through that bags drill. Again, these are two players that honestly I hadn't heard about 2 weeks ago. You may start hearing their names now as players that could come off the board later in the 6th and 7th round. So if you're thinking about sleepers for the Buccaneers late in this year's draft, don't forget these two guys from the International Player Pathway Program.
That's going to do it for us on this edition of Road to the Draft, powered by Copilot. We have just 2 more of these episodes before the NFL draft, and we find out who the newest members of the crew will be.